I suppose a lot of people maybe, possibly, Welcome everyone to the 6th episode of the WhatCast, where today's theme is the education system. We'll be mainly taking a look at the Irish system, but also we'll be touching on other systems such as the international one, which it goes through.
Hello.
That's Tulsi there. Quite exciting. This podcast you can check out his Instagram, where he posts the stunning scenery of the northwest of Ireland. If you find his photography just as amazing as we do, you can buy his prints from his Instagram, which frames can be included. An example of his work is the drone footage you see in the background of this video. A big thank you to Darach Sharkey for providing the background music you hear in this video and in our intro. You can check his links in the description to show him some support. Although it may not seem like it when you're in school, education has a fundamental role in the growth of society and becoming who you are when you grow up. The current Leaving Cert situation in Ireland will probably be the main topic we'll be discussing tonight, as this week Leaving Cert students have come back to school to the classrooms after a second time of schools being closed due to COVID-19. COVID-19 has affected education all over the world due to school closures, and this is a topic that is important to discuss. For viewers who don't know, the Irish Leaving Cert is the final 2 years of school, which is the equivalent to the British A-levels, the American SATs and ACTs, and the international IB exams. To start off tonight's show, we're going to be discussing the effects of online school and whether it has been done properly. So, I suppose it's kind of all over the world. That's something people have gone through. Especially in Ireland, we literally just came out of a second school lockdown. I suppose lockdown's still going on, but schools have reopened even though it is stage 5. To start off, I suppose do you think that's right? that like schools are open.
For us anyway, like we kind of needed to be back. For
Yeah, I
6
agree
years,
with
like,
that.
for the
You
leaving
can't
cert.
you can't not have your education system running at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Especially now that like in Ireland we've just been given an option to do predicted grades, which I think was a very important thing that was like necessary to be done, in my opinion, because like it was to give students, like, because we've missed so much, especially in the first lockdown, that like, you know, if there's any subjects that you specifically need to focus on, it can give you the opportunity to do so.
yeah. I think the best thing about it is that we get the choice. You can sit the exam or you can get the predicted grade. I think that's the best way they could possibly have gone with it.
Yeah,
Because there was a bit touch and go there for a while, whether we would have to sit the leaving cert or just predicted grades. So.
yeah, they really left it to the last moment, like, it was unreal.
Yeah, it could have been organised better, which is usually the case with the Irish government, but what can you do?
Yeah, definitely. Sure, I know Tulsa your school just went into like online school again, didn't it?
Yeah, that was just. I'm going back to school on Monday, so it was just a week. Just because like a few students had corona in the grade above.
Hmm.
But yeah, we were in lockdown for around, as in we were online schooling for around 2 semesters, which was, yeah, it was crazy. But I mean, our school is anyways. The main difference was the fact that just we were on Zoom, I guess, because all our lessons are taught through laptops and online, so it wasn't the biggest difference. But yeah, it's good to be back in school, definitely.
Now, you see, in my opinion, the way it was handled last year in lockdown for us being in fifth year, like the second last year of school, I think that was an absolute shambles. Because it was kind of like they expected everyone kind of expected that like this thing would only last 1 year. So what they done is they just really focused on the sixth years. And basically in the fifth years is basically like, okay, right, we'll just catch up on them next year kind of thing. So our year, I think I had like 3 Zooms in total, but obviously with my internet, I was really only able to be in one, which was it was really annoying. But so I feel like back then we lost out on like far more than like you could imagine, because we were basically just like sent work and expected to do it. Now, for my personal my experience, I think I was doing higher level maths, but obviously without the Zoom calls and stuff, I was not able to learn that on my own at all. So like obviously coming into the sixth year, I had to drop down to ordinary level, which is something like I kind of wish I could still do honors, but because of how much I missed, I really couldn't.
Yeah, they really weren't looking out for the 50 years as last year. I hope that the 50 years this year get a bit of like support.
Yeah, I kind of think that like Joe, like how like what they were originally planning for us is just have a slightly easier leaving cert. You could say, like, you know, more choices. I think that would suit with the way it is right now. I think that would suit the current 50 years next year, unless obviously another lockdown happens. But like, cause like they're still getting their online classes, but for us, we had nothing, and that's what their original plan for us was, which would have been horrific to say the least. Like,
yeah, I think that, like in my grade, I think that for some subjects we are definitely behind in the curriculum, just because a lot of emphasis has been given to like seniors, so like last year's.
I think maybe you can agree with this, Frank, but like physics is one of those subjects that, like, I suppose online school didn't really affect too much, in my opinion.
I think, but we also had it's one of the few subjects where we had a teacher that knew what he was at, like with tech and that. It's a really bad problem here that teachers aren't well versed, if you would say that, in like computers and stuff, and they can't get Zooms working, and like obviously over the weeks they got better, and by the last couple of weeks that we were online they were fine, but it was a bit of a nightmare at the start. We definitely missed a lot in some subjects, but physics and maths weren't too bad because Keith knew what he was at, our maths teacher.
Yeah, I think, you see, I really wish there was maths for Zoom, honestly.
So I have a question. So although like we kind of like had a really strange year last year compared to the ones in 5th year now. But do you still think that there should be any like changes to their leaving cert? Like, do you not
Yeah,
think they should be like handled
definitely.
a certain way?
You see, I think they should be
yeah,
treated
it's-
with our
ways to go
original
about that.
plan. I think that would be fair.
I think it should be so they edits to the actual papers themselves. But I mean, they didn't miss that much of their course so far. It depends. It's still up in the air whether if we're still in lockdown next year, then definitely they should get predicted grades as well.
See,
Um,
another thing as well, the majority of them last
because
year
it's
would have
not
been in
fair.
transition year, which is in Ireland. It's kind of, you can say, a gap year where you do like courses and stuff. It's not an academic year, you could say. But a majority of students these days do it, and so the majority of the current 5th years would have been in that. So realistically, last year they didn't miss much. Maybe they missed the actual, like, you know, going into school, that rhythm, I suppose. That was going to be like their downfall.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'm 5th year, but we have adjustments for our papers next year for our exams, and they're basically practically the same as what's been adjusted this year for students.
What kind of changes have they made for yous?
They've like reduced papers. We had, for example, history. We had 3 papers, like 3 exams. So they've just reduced the number of essays we have to write. Theatre for theatre, a group project that we all have to do, that's been taken out. But yeah, just there have been like pretty drastic changes for some subjects, which is good.
I think for us, they've gone for the approach of giving us more option. I think that was a pretty good way of doing it. But like, obviously, then we had actually no, I take it back. It's not a good idea. I don't know what I was talking about there. But like, if you were to set a paper now, it is modified, as in you have more choices. It's not necessarily they're taking stuff away, but like you have a choice, which I think is a pretty good way of doing it.
Haven't even finished editing them yet. There's on the 22nd of March. There's a press release or whatever going to be on where they're going to explain what else is being dropped from different courses. And like you were talking about history, Tulsi, I'm waiting for an essay to be cut from the history exam so that I'll sit it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I can't.
There was one thing.
In too many essays in too short a time.
There's one thing a teacher was mentioning, that like people who are going to do predicted grades, it's kind of like you don't have that sense of achievement. I thought like it's something you'd never think of, but I suppose that is definitely there.
Like that sense of maturity you get for your hard work.
You see,
there's the thing like Ireland's exam system. I suppose that's what we're talking about. Like it's not off topic, like education. It's so outdated. I mean, everything, your entire 3rd level education hinges on a single exam at the end of your like secondary school, and it's terrible. Like the people have been trying to get it changed for years because there's no form of like continuous assessment in Irish school systems to speak of.
Yeah.
Do you have like? Does your like percent or your final grade, does it have any sort of internal assessment?
Some like practical subjects, yes, but like subjects like maths, English, no, not at all. Even physics, there's nothing.
Languages, you have your oral test and your listening, which kind of account for a bit, but maths, English, subjects similar.
I think in my personal opinion, I think the Irish English curriculum, I think that is a pretty flawed system, in my opinion. See, I think it should be kind of more revolved around like the way our Irish one goes, how we have an oral and a listening comprehension, as in like how like it's kind of like it's not all based on a written test. I think that's a big problem with English. You see, for like maths, you can understand.
How do you do an oral?
Not an oral, Liam, an oral, like a listening comprehension.
Oh. Like, why? I don't understand it. How could you do a listening comprehension in an English-speaking country for English? Like, that wouldn't really make sense, would it?
Yeah.
Well,
I kind of agree with Liam.
Yeah, but what my point is like
I know what you mean, though, Giovanni. Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be all based on one exam. It's kind of what I meant by that.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, obviously, I agree, like, an oral would be kind of stupid for, like, a language you speak all day. But then again, you would get a lot of, like, I suppose, feedback from that. Because, like, for example, like, I'm not good at written English, but then again, like, we do a podcast. That like, kind of is English in the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like when you say like an oral or
Sorry.
whatever, that's okay. When you say like an oral or something, whatever, like it makes me think of just like the teacher understanding you. And like things like stutters as well can have an effect on that. So like then people would just basically get passed. But like the thing I'm more curious about is because English is one of them subjects I feel like is one of the reasons why it's so important in Ireland is because English teaches you how to express your like opinions and things. So maybe if it was like, I don't know, personally, like because we don't do any political studies really, not like in our education. Maybe you can do them like on your own, but like
Yeah.
you could do something like that for English, like literally just debates in
I suppose,
English,
like,
and
yeah.
like the teacher can see how much effort you put in.
Do you know, like, one thing that I kind of like, I think, do you like, remember in the junior cert how we had to do a presentation that was something like 10% of your final mark? I think something like that introduced into leaving
Yeah.
cert would be really good.
And it's practical too. Like
Yeah.
that is a really practical thing to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that is part of our like IB grade for English is that you have to do an oral presentation and it can be on like anything within.
Yeah.
Well, I
We
mean,
had that
maybe
for our junior
related to what
cert.
you.
Actually,
Okay,
I remember
yeah.
mine was on like the evolution of Ford motors. I thought it was really good. Like I went on Google Drive last day because we set a Google Drive up for the WhatCast, and it was kind of funny. Just like I seen my old project, I was like, oh wow, that was actually so good. Even though like I got achieved for that, I thought it was so good.
Yeah, it is. It is really good. Like I remember, like it was a little bit awkward as well at first. Like everyone was kind of dreading it, but then after it was done, it was like you kind of had fun and you were glad you did it. Like, so
Yeah, but
that's
like,
what I think of it.
like public speaking is really important as well. Like it also builds people's confidence. Like so, like if they ever do in the future, like they have like I suppose that kind of toned down experience of it. Because like
That's
for
exactly
example,
my
the
point.
current
Like you're
English
able to
system, it's like
yourself.
right, okay, you do English, whatever, but then like let's say you get a job, whatever, and you have to do a presentation. Like if you work in an office or something, and like you have like your first one, you'd have like zero experience in it, pretty much. Unless you had
Yeah.
like personal endeavors that you've done it before, but like on a school-based one, like you haven't really done much similar to that.
That's one of like the biggest like or at least one of the most common fears in the world to like public speaking. A lot of people are like very like have phobias and fears of these things. So like it's just beneficial to that too. Like so, it just seems like all around good.
Yeah, I think so. That
I think.
I reckon after this lockdown, like this COVID thing, I feel like schools are going to change a lot. I feel like now they've kind of
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah,
hardcore
definitely.
seen the
I think
weaknesses.
this. Yeah, I think this was definitely like a turning point in the leaving cert being the be all and end all. I think
Yes.
from now on there'll be a lot more continuous assessment.
Yeah.
Just because if it stays the way that it is, we'll end up in the similar situation year after year. Like.
Yeah, definitely.
I think also like a move towards technology, especially when it comes to learning. That one's pretty big.
Yeah.
Like Giovanni, me and you were talking about this. Like if the school kind of used Discord, they would be like so well off almost.
Yeah, for like online schools, because generally it's done through Zoom. But like, think of it on Discord, you could have an individual class for each one. I thought that would be a really good idea. I brought it up to one teacher, and I just kind of like shoved it off, like.
Yeah.
But I think that would have actually been a really good
It's
system.
a really big problem, and I touched on this already a wee bit. But teachers not knowing anything about technology at all. It's kind of shocking, like, especially when everything is moving so like technological in every aspect of life.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we're the kids, and we're trying to like we're the kids, and this is like why I think English is so important too, because like we're the kids trying to explain to them like because we spend like I bet if you did a survey and just tested like 18-year-olds versus like 30-year-olds, like how much time they spend on like phones and stuff, it's absolutely more time.
Well, I
if
suppose
you're
like,
younger.
Like, that would be not like that wouldn't be necessarily the kind of like technological like knowledge they'd need. Like they need to like kind of like, for example, for the Zoom stuff, like like maybe if they did like even like a course on how to use Zooms, like stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of Discord though, like because like I have this idea, like think about it, like you can like have all the power in Discord. So, like the teacher can ban you from like texting in a certain, let's say like a chat, and then she could post like all the notes into that class. So at any time, from a click of a button, you can see what you're doing in school at all times. And I just don't know how like they're not aware of this. Like who is fighting or pushing for this? I don't know.
I mean,
guess so.
there are different like platforms, I suppose, that
Yeah.
are being used, and it's still pretty good. Like I use Google Classroom, which is easy to navigate and it's good. But yeah, Discord would be an interesting.
Like Discord would be a bit complicated. It would be a bit complicated, but there's like, to my knowledge, there's something better I can think of that would be good for this.
Discord isn't complicated when you know how to use it, and it
Discord's
doesn't take much to learn. Like, definitely a course for teachers where they learn how to use it properly. I don't know. Do you have a similar problem, Tulsi, where you are? Like, teachers on being unable to use the equipment and the technology and that kind of thing?
No, because our school, my school has always been pretty like techie. Like I don't write in any of my lessons apart from like maths, like with my physical hand. Yes, exams are done in pen, but otherwise, so we just use laptops.
So, I think like realistically in like our school, I'm not going to say names. I think there's like 2 teachers that are really like they know their stuff about technology. That would be like my TD teacher and my physics teacher. I think like, the rest of them kind of like don't really know. I think another thing with like online schools as well, like you know, like people have like stuff going on at home, like people walking around, people doing stuff, like I know in some of my classes, like you know, like a child walks on, teacher's like, oh my god, what do I do, kind of thing, like it's just that moment, like oh, the teacher has to go now. See, but another thing I don't understand is I think I don't know if any teacher's done it, but I think the teachers should have went into school themselves to do their Zooms.
I think they just have the classroom.
Yeah.
Then again, they could make the argument that they want to stay safe as well. Like, why would we go in there? Like, we don't want to go in there alone. You know?
No, it'd be 1 teacher per classroom.
Especially for like a lot of people, like.
No, like it'd be fine. I mean, 1 teacher per classroom.
Yeah.
That's what happened with us. Is that teachers did transfer eventually to classrooms, but like it was a couple months, and it was better, much better.
They were just in the classroom alone with a computer.
Yeah.
And they could
That's
write
weird.
on the board and things like that.
Yeah.
Plus,
I mean,
they have then access to the whiteboards and stuff too.
Yeah.
That's another big thing to think about.
Supplies within
Just on a comment there on the actual comment section of the video, Shamey, with some bold statements.
They're old-fashioned and thick. I don't think it's like that anymore with, like, for example, our school. Like, our school kind of used to be kind of like rough, but like I suppose over the past like 20 years, it's really like a whole different environment for the students. Like,
yeah,
I think that like the Irish education system has actually changed a lot.
School, I think.
See, I don't know if it's like this in every Irish school, but like I think in our school there's like such a good relationship between the teachers and the students. Like when you think about it, it really is kind of crazy to think about.
Like, talk to people from other schools, even in the area, like the relationship between the teachers and the students isn't the same, and it actually like it fosters good learning. Like it's when you can get on really well with your teachers, and I mean you still have to have respect for them, but when you
like there's a limit, like
well with your teachers, it makes a massive difference. It makes a massive difference in what in the respect that you have for them and they have for you. It's like a two-way thing, and you never feel in our school that you're like
lesser,
being told what to do all the time, and you're lesser than the teachers. You never get that. I think it's really important, and it's something that our school does very well.
See, another thing like that I find weird with our school, but
should
like
definitely focus on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, another thing with our schools, like students call the teachers by their first names too. Like when you think of like other schools, that would be like so weird to do. Like I've seen even like videos like calling teachers by their first names to get their reactions. Like the teachers go mental. Like I feel like kind of like when you like if by like even like calling someone by their first name, it's not really like a thing of respect. Really, I suppose you could think of it like that, but it's kind of like it's more personal. Like you know, like you can like trust that person more, rather than like having to like call them by like an official name. They call them by the first name. It's more personal.
Like it's even funnier than that, Giovanni, because it's not just we call them by their first name. Like sometimes we even have like nicknames for them,
Oh
and we
my
almost
god, yeah.
like play along sometimes too. Like they're very, very like close students, and the teachers will know the students to keep their eye on, and the students will know the teachers to keep their eye
Yeah,
on.
and
You know?
something so interesting as well about like if you take a case study, like people say the reason that you can't call your teachers by your their first name and things like that, having a good relationship with your teachers is that students become unruly in that and they don't respect the teachers. But I would completely disagree with that. I think
Yeah.
our school, the respect between the students and the teachers is more so than any, like obviously I don't have experience of other schools, but what I've heard from my siblings and things like that, the relationship that we have because of that openness and kind of it's almost like a friendly relationship with teachers. It really adds.
I suppose like, even when you
Yeah.
when you take that into the
really you respect the teachers more when they respect you. I suppose
even when you take that to like an education like point of view, it's like kind of like if it's someone like you know you can trust, you kind of like you'd probably pay more attention when you feel like their opinion is more valid.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like there's
And
a
as
lot of
well,
benefits from that
it's
too.
like I got another one here. So it's like, let's say you're in a class, right, and the teacher seems to be like a little bit drowning you in work. Now, if the teacher knows you, then they can kind of like a lot of teachers in our school, like not that they're slacking, but like if they like know you, they kind of like know your circumstance too. So like they'll be like they'll keep an eye on you, you know, or like keep their wing over your shoulder kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, like
I guess
Yeah.
not
communication.
always, like,
But
but
even
it's just
what they've done,
yeah, like it's easy to come to the teachers.
another thing they've done with our school
Tulsi,
for this year is they've
do you have a similar
Sorry.
do you have a similar relationship with your teachers, or is it different?
Yeah.
Or is it?
No, I have pretty similar relationships. I mean, I not like we call them by their first names, but it's just also maybe the fact that my classes tend to be quite small. It's easier to get to know the teacher, and the teacher also gets to know you, which is great. But yeah, communication, understanding becomes better, and like even your like willpower to just learn in that class is pretty. It increases.
yeah.
Yeah, you become the teacher's friend, like, so it's almost like it's like that life hack of like you'll always see this in businesses. They're always trying to make like education like fun, you know. That's what we like. That's what we love as human beings. We want to try and make like something that you love to watch, but is also really good to watch, like Sesame Street. Like that's what they were trying to go for there.
It's like
They're
another
trying to go
reason
for
that's important is because like
education and fun.
there's literally people that will not do a certain subject because of the teacher. Like they don't like that teacher, so they won't choose that subject, even though it might be something they need or something they like.
Like even when you see American schools, like I remember I used to like I know this isn't like all American schools, but the only time I've ever seen it is in an American video, and it's like you might see like a fight between the teacher and the student. Like I swear that would never happen in our schools. Like yeah, the teacher could get sick and be like sit down, whatever, like cop on, but it's never like a fight, you know, ever like physical or anything like.
Well, actually, that's like I think in our area anyway is kind of reserved to our school. I know my brothers and that who were at different schools in the area, like they've told me stories about there'd be fights between the teachers and the students, and students just not caring what the teachers say. But I think it's just in our school anyway. It's just that's not the case.
Yeah, and treat you like formally, it's like they do give you a form of respect. It's like you have to treat them with respect, and they just treat you as their stupid student. Like it's like a mutual respect kind of thing. Like they respect you because if you take them seriously and get them like good grades, make them a better teacher, they'll be happy. But you also, it's just a mutual thing. Like
yeah, and I think like that is something important that like kind of like I don't know, like suppose no one like ever looks at that, do they? It's like really like you've never heard like I suppose like anyone saying that's more like kind of like stuff that like has only ever been talked about like in our school, like some like teachers say that quite often, but like I don't know, like if you're like watching the news or watching videos or something, like it's never brought up.
Yeah,
because like like other places just don't have it to start with, so like they wouldn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Suppose the education boards around the world. There you go, life hack.
Yeah, life hack.
And like, write this shit down. Write this shit down.
Yeah.
Sure, but yeah, like I suppose
No, you never know.
students being back at school now, it's like it's kind of it's a different tone. Like it's just like the vibes of school just feel kind of different.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like
I'm
like,
glad to be back.
yeah,
Definitely though.
like bro, it's like going back. It's like, oh my god, other humans. Like
Yeah,
literally.
the social aspect. You don't appreciate like the social aspect of school until you
Yeah.
haven't been in school. Or like, yeah, totally agree in there. It's actually so good to just see people and be like, oh,
What's the crack,
this is
sir?
what people look like, not on a rubbish home like laptop camera.
Yeah. Sure, yeah, but like I suppose in like the comparison between the first school lockdown and the school lockdown, like they done a much better job at it. I suppose that's kind of like my
Yeah,
personal outcome to it.
they were better prepared or something.
Yeah.
They're improving.
I suppose like even when we came back, I
Definitely.
like said it to every teacher, like if it does happen again, it needs to follow the like school timetable. Like I said it to every teacher, and I feel like I personally
That was
had a
really,
big
really
effect on
important,
that
though.
because like I just like kept bringing it up.
Good on you.
Because like I suppose like for me
Yeah,
that was
no,
really important because
That
like
was a massive improvement.
because like even for me because we had no Zooms or anything, like, there was no reason to like wake up early. Like you just wake up at 1, stay up to like 3 in the morning, do your work in between the day. Like
Yeah,
Mm.
like our school starts much later for us, which is it's so good. It's amazing.
What time do you start at?
Like lessons begin usually at 9:40. So yeah.
We're usually in school by 8:20.
Yeah, that was
our
what
bus
that
arrives
was
really
us
early.
last year.
Well, I have a question for you. So, no, I don't know if any of you agree, but like, do any of you think like online schooling is better? Like, of course, there's pros and cons, but do any of you just prefer the online schooling to actual?
No, I
like.
No.
I'd say if there was no COVID, then I far prefer going to school.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
Isn't it-
honestly.
Hey,
Go on.
Just continue. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, there's certain aspects, like, I just think about, like, as well, like, in school, you're always told, like, sleep well and things, like, and that's a really big thing. Like, you know, the students who come in late to school are because they get a little bit of lack of sleep. That's the reason, usually. Not always, but typically. I can say myself it is. In online schooling, it's kind of like, you don't really necessarily have to have that structure anymore, so you can, like,
Yeah.
wake up at 5 a.m. Your structure kind of gets ruined in that sense. But I know if I was taking it more seriously, that my structure would be definitely more messed up because of the fact that it's online schooling. Because it's kind of like you can do whatever you want with your time as long as you're in that class at that time.
Yeah. See, like that was honestly a positive for me. Just being, I preferred being more in charge of like my time management, I think. So honestly, online classes were pretty good. I think a combination of both have been good. Like this week off from school was actually quite nice. But yeah, like I think it's also like now I know what times I work better at because I've just had that sort of flexibility.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a pro and con because, like, for the responsible students, it gives them the, like, I guess a bit of experience of like, hey, you know, sometimes life is going to be hectic and you have to learn time management. But it's just like for some irresponsible students like myself, I know I would be like all over the place with the whole structure of the online schooling.
So for me personally,
But I agree with you. I think school in person.
For me personally, I feel like
face-to-face schooling is always better.
Online school gave me an opportunity to have like personal projects, like for example the podcast and like my YouTube channel. Like I had a good like amount of like free time to do that. I
Mm.
suppose that like I suppose I took advantage of that time a lot. I suppose like that's something that some like I suppose not many people do, but like you have that opportunity to do so.
You have so much more time. Like you get ready for school. You don't have to get up early. You don't really have to look your best if you don't have to like put on your things. So it's like you have a lot more time on your hands, which is some people it can be a bit of a problem, but some people it's very handy. Like just have the extra time to go make a podcast or whatever you want to do.
Yeah. I do think though, like the actual education, like actually learning, takes a significant step back.
Yeah.
Like it isn't the same as
Why
being
is that?
being in it with your peers and your teacher and being able to ask questions, like on the fly or whatever, and that the whole like atmosphere inside a classroom is completely different.
Yeah.
I just think like personally, anyway, at least.
It kind of took the fun aspect out of it, like having the crack kind of thing.
Yeah, there was no, because at school, I mean, even if you're like dreading a subject, wherever you've forgotten to do your homework or something, at least it's gonna be decent crack. Like your mates are there anyway, and
Yeah.
you can have the like a good enough time. Whereas if you're on Zoom and you're just kind of bored and you can't really speak to your mates, and it's just like I can't really be bothered with this.
Kind of like what we say, a victim of the circumstance though, because like when you're in school the way we were before, it's like we all thought it was going to go normally, but then because like the whole COVID happened, we had to like you could tell that the teachers were as stressed as the students. Like the teachers didn't really know what was going on either, so it's kind of like you didn't. Well, at least I would feel like I didn't really want to interrupt any classes or anything because of the fact like everyone's stressed and like I don't want to like put it on anyone else, but when I was in the class, you kind of knew what was going on. Like we didn't even think at any point like the education system would kind of be one big question mark at a point in our lives, like, or maybe
Yeah,
not a
definitely.
question mark, but it's like we just never thought it would take the turn it did, like at all. Who could predict?
I suppose we have a question there from Mike. He's like, he's asked to talk about the effects on introverts and extroverts. I suppose like that kind of really defines like who it would benefit and who it wouldn't benefit. Because like obviously there are people like extroverts, like they need to be around other people. They need that social aspect in their life, and like with online school, like they're deprived of that.
Yeah.
Like
Like, a lot of
it is fundamental, like to like your well-being, like at the end of the day.
Especially
I think
as
even
well. Like,
with
sorry,
go ahead,
go on.
man.
No, you go on.
I think though with introverts, like I mean, extroverts don't have the problem, but I think the social aspect is important for introverts as well. I mean, if you're an introvert, you would take the option, wouldn't you, to never have to interact with anybody? That's kind of or like as little as possible.
Yeah.
I think it's important to be exposed to that when you're young. You definitely need. I mean, everyone. I mean, high school or secondary school or whatever you want to call it. You always hear about how bad it is or whatever, but it's still an important formative experience in people's social lives.
Oh, do you know what this reminds me of? So before I mention that, there was something I wanted to say as well, like about the introverts and extroverts. It's kind of like it's the whole atmosphere is different. Like even for an introvert or extrovert, I just feel more like it would probably be worse for extroverts. But like even the fact that like you're not really supposed to be like leaving and things, and like in Ireland we don't really have much sun here anyways, which is like a lot of people say like that's the reason why like the Irish love the pubs, like because there's kind of like a gloominess in the air all the time. So we love the
Where is
pub, but we
where is
love
this
the pub.
going?
I'm just saying, like, it creates an atmosphere where people are just kind of, I feel like they're a little bit more sad due to the whole COVID thing. Like, it's just depressing, you know?
Yeah, sure. I
And,
was
like,
I was in the shop just
school, like,
there,
that's,
right?
like, very...
I was in the shop just there queuing in the line. I was buying some Copperberg, and I was like, "There's a big queue in the line," because the one at the till was just like chatting shit to the one who was like buying stuff, and there's this two Scottish people behind me. I just one goes like, hello, like Billy, whatever his name is, like, how's it going? He's like, struggling along. I was like, oh my god, like it was just like, bruh.
The most Irish interaction ever.
It literally was though. So
But
like,
we're always like that, but I just feel like it's even more so now than ever before. Like,
Yeah.
like where that Irish weather's really setting in. Like,
possibly a bit off topic, like, but I miss the pub.
Possibly, maybe. Possibly, maybe.
Like at the end of like a
Possibly,
school
maybe.
week, like it was something to look forward to, but like I suppose that's not there anymore, is it?
No.
Mm.
Okay, you'd be
Seems
refreshed
like,
for
what
like
are
the
they
next
talking
Monday,
about?
like.
Yeah.
Yes, like
He's made me think of a movie there though. Like it's called Captain Fantastic, and it's basically about So it's like a
Aragorn living in the woods with his family.
yeah. Basically, it's like so that's just like
Yeah.
why you need to like go see people like in school because
Yeah.
it's nice, even if like you don't get along with everyone in school. Like that social aspect is really important for your development. Like,
And
isn't it?
yeah, and you miss a
100%.
lot out on like your yeah, like cognitive development and things like that from
yeah,
not having
definitely.
interaction with your
It's
peers.
really affected. But like I suppose I've a
Like there's
question.
even like things like
Sorry, I'll carry on now.
I was
Go
just gonna
ahead,
say like
Giovanni.
physical touch. Like human beings almost need physical touch sometimes too. Like so, I just wonder how this thing all like plays into the psychology of people.
All right, Liam, just
But anyways,
reminding everyone that they're lonely.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
great.
yeah, my bad.
But there's a question I'd like to bring up for everyone for discussion is on predicted grades. Like, do you think they are fair?
I mean,
It's fine, fair.
oh no.
No, we're
No,
not.
but it's kind of a difficult one to answer. I mean, they're fair in the way that I think it's brilliant that we got the choice
Yeah,
of predicted grades.
I think more than
and-
that, it's brilliant that we have the choice on a subject-to-subject basis.
yeah, and I suppose the problem you could say with predicted grades is people like who didn't know we were going to have predicted grades, and they're
Yeah.
not great workers like in every class, but they can do well in exam.
Yeah,
I
I'm kind of
suppose
like
it
that.
hurts them people a bit, but then again, like I know even myself, wasn't taking exams seriously this year either. But we did know. I mean, from when school finished last year, early in March or whatever it was, and we knew that we might have predicted grades for our leaving cert. Like we knew that we should have been taking the test seriously that we would have that would be added to our predicted grades.
Yeah,
So that excuse is kind of
no, like we were very well like informed that like it is like so important.
yeah.
Like there's like
We-
no
we
argument
definitely
saying that
were,
like
and-
it wasn't like we weren't told.
And I know, like, I'm guilty myself of not putting the effort sometimes into tests that I should have. But I suppose everyone has that.
Hmm.
But I suppose we can't really blame that, like, in the sense, like, oh, predicted grades aren't fair because some people didn't put effort into their test through the year because we did know that we should have been putting effort into the test through the year, like.
That's a thing though. Like teenagers, the reason like you're not allowed to do certain things before you're 18 is because like your body isn't fully developed. Your frontal lobe is basically your decision making in your brain. So as a
What?
teenager, you're. I'm just saying, like you're saying, like that some people they knew this was coming, but then again, like at the end of the day, they're still teenagers. Like that's how I feel
Yeah.
about it. Anyways, like because as a teenager, your frontal lobe isn't fully developed. That's your decision making. So although yeah, you might know something, you might know you have to do this thing. A lot of kids just do the stupid thing because you're a kid, man.
I think
Yeah.
So yes, I know. Like
I think one thing that's like kind of questionable about this predicted grade system is the bell curve. How that's what they're following, where basically like
Oh, yeah.
only like a set amount of students can like get A's, for example. So kind of if you look at the
Yeah.
graph of like each grade someone gets, how it would be kind of in the shape of a bell. Like Joe, like let's say
I
like
mean, that's a
like C's and B, like yeah, like C's would be kind of like the peak, and then like A's and like D's would be the like lows. I think that kind of like can like really just like people who would deserve an A like could be like completely like excused out of it. So like basically what they're doing is like
Yeah,
your junior
I think-
cert, which is kind of like one of GCSEs, is where like basically if there's too many A's in a particular test, where they'll look at your junior cert results, which you've been told your whole life are worthless, so like not many people actually went full effort into them. They'll be taking a look at your top 3 like results and using them to like put you down a grade, which is like in my case that's like that would be really like bad for me, because like I like did not like I was a complete slacker for junior cert, but then like 5th and 6th year, like I really like I sharpened up. Like I've been doing my work, I've been doing my best. Like, so I feel like personally that could really affect my grades in like a negative way.
I think this like that also like ties into how the system or like the program, the examination, how it sort of judges you needs to change now and not just be based on that one exam.
Yeah.
But more on like your whole high school experience. Because predicted grades are everyone sort of everyone focuses I guess then on the final exams.
Do you have predicted grades? Like do you have the option?
No, well, last year the whole IB year like exams were cancelled, and they based on predicted grades. But there was a lot of controversy. I don't know why. I just know that a lot of students were really upset with their predicted grades and like how, because everyone like got pretty crappy grades, I would say.
I think it's kind of like a similar situation here. Like there were people like that like shouldn't have gotten the grades they got, and they got them, but then there's people like should have got really good grades but didn't, even though like they completely deserved it.
Yeah. I think that's again to talking about like the bell curve you were saying, Giovanni, which always applies every year. Like it's not even this year, and like how flawed that is. Now I have no idea why it's applied in the first place. Clearly they must have a reason for it, and I'm just not familiar with it. But I do find it like fundamentally unfair. It's kind of like, oh, this amount of students getting A's and you're only allowed to award this many A's. I don't understand why that's the way it is. I mean, if you have a larger student base doing well, and why would you bring their grades down? There must be some logic behind why they do it that I'm not familiar with, but I don't understand it at all.
I don't remember.
I should have a look into it, but
what subject? I think it was physics. Where basically like the way it was is like it was like the grades the year before. This was for last year's predicted grades. So like, if no one got like a H1, which is like 90 to 100%, if no one got a H1 the year before, then no one this year would be allowed to get a H1 as their predicted grade.
Yeah.
I think that was terrible. Like you're basing someone's grades on like someone else's grades.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that I'm assuming like there's definitely people who are like really like affected by that. The thing is, you won't really know because like you won't know like
there's probably gonna be a lot of court battles like
that's what happened this year
too. Like
that happened
this week. There was a case, but it actually got thrown out in the High Court, didn't it? They were like, no, it doesn't. This doesn't stand up or whatever because of the way that the predicted grade system worked. It was like a student challenging a predicted grade that they got or whatever it was, and the High Court ruled that under the circumstances the teachers did what they had to do or whatever, and you can't challenge the predicted grades, and that's kind of set a precedent now. Like challenge.
Actually, job was really horrible last year.
The teacher gives you.
The fact that teachers had to list the students in their class from best to worst.
Oh,
if I was a teacher, I would hate to do that.
But it was insane because the way it worked was teachers were told, so we know who to downgrade. So we know who to downgrade. You need to list your students from worst to best. And the teachers were like, no, we don't want to do that. And they said, so the government or whatever said, no, it's fine. We won't release the lists. No one's going to know how you ranked people or whatever. So the teachers' unions and that were like, oh, we'll agree to it so that this can run smoothly. They agreed to it. They made the list. The grades went out, and then the government released the lists. So you can actually go on if you're a student and look where you were from last year. Look where you were. I think it's horrible. I think it's a terrible thing that I understand why they wanted to rank to an extent. I still think it's wrong, but I can understand where they were coming from. I don't understand one reason why they would publish that information. I think it wasn't fair on the teachers, and it's one of the reasons why we've only discovered now in March that we're going to be getting predicted grades in that, because the teachers union wouldn't agree to anything the government said because of the way they screwed them over last year.
I think like actually like having to do
You
that, like
think they made lists
like rank your students is like
last
kind
year?
of horrible.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
did. Liam.
But that was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So the-
insane. Wow.
Like and
Yeah,
like,
so the unions, the ASTI and the TUI, wouldn't agree to anything the government said because they didn't trust them. I mean, you can't even blame them.
What is the TUI, Teachers Union or something?
Teachers Union of Ireland, and the ASTI, I actually have no idea. It's like,
something Teachers Ireland.
it'll come to me. I can't. think
I'll
of it
look
on
up
the
a
spot.
definition here, but yeah.
That's just
Oh,
They're basically the unions.
uncomfortable. That's just uncomfortable. Hmm.
Association of Secondary Teachers in Ireland,
Yeah.
ASTM. They're pretty much split half in the country. Like half the, well, in our school, the TUI is actually bigger, like a lot bigger than the ASTI. Anyway, no, I'm probably wrong.
Mhm.
Hmm. I never heard about that. I never knew that they made a list. That is so crazy. But
Yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, like when you look at it, like
I guess it's one of them things that
you can like compare that to like in hospitals, doctors having to choose which COVID patients live and which ones die. Like, I mean, like obviously it's not to that extreme, but like it's the same like
Yeah.
moral
I know,
to
I
it.
know
Like,
the comparisons there, like.
yeah, it's just like that is not a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to say
But
this
as
is
a
the worst
doctor,
student in
their
my
whole
class
job-
and have
their
it like
whole-
official. I personally would hate to do that.
Gee, it was interesting how you brought up about the doctor too, though, because it's like doctors are the exact people who fucking want you to be, like,
Mhm.
you know, and it's like you're making them choose who fucking dies. What?
I know it's horrible. It's a horrible,
Oh,
horrible situation.
That's
Like,
awful.
I think like if
And,
I
like-
was a teacher, I would have probably just like straight up refused to do it. Like, it's just like
Yeah.
morally wrong.
And, like,
I wonder-
we're
Has any
clearly not
teachers
ones
refused
to,
it?
like, because they have to give a predicted grade for students. Like, if the union agrees to it, then they're kind of forced then.
Mhm.
You imagine there's one though who probably did their job and they're like, no fucking way.
Yep, definitely.
Maybe
I
not.
hope there are teachers
Maybe
like that.
there is, but yeah,
Yeah.
It shouldn't be
Um,
something that.
yeah, we're really not ones like the Irish government. Like, it's insane. What happened as well, outsourced the algorithm or whatever that was going to predict, like, calculate what grades students would get to fit it into the, as you were in the bell curve, the standardization, and inputting some data or whatever, and the way that it worked out was that something like 10% of Irish student got downgraded wrongly, incorrectly. So 10%. And what's insane is where we are, and like everyone knows where we are in the country is like the backwater. It's there's nothing here. Like, we're very disconnected from the rest of the country. And in our school, 60% of the students got downgraded, even though the national average was 10%. So it shows like the way that the government plan things countrywide, but also
Didn't
the
like
way
look
that
into
we
rural
kind of got left behind
schools.
in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose.
60% of students getting wrongly downgraded is insane.
Yeah. I think
Oh.
like is that the downgraded, or like are those like only the wrongly downgraded ones?
That's only the wrongly downgraded ones.
How many were downgraded?
I'm curious as well.
I'm not sure what the figures are. I think it was 6,000 were wrongly downgraded, and then there'll be more that were downgraded, like the way the algorithm was worked out or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm curious as
But there
well.
would be
I'm curious as well because for those who don't know, which I imagine most of our viewers do know, but in Ireland, like the maximum points you can get is 625. That's how it works here. It's a point system. But
Oh
like
yeah, through
when it
school,
comes
yeah.
to this, it might not even be. Yeah, well, it might not even be points, whatever. It's like, well, it might not be 10 points. Like, I wonder how many points of a difference I could make because you're saying they're incorrect.
Yeah, they
Well, I'm
were
trying to minimize it in
corrected.
my own head.
I mean, they were corrected, but it was just a massive fluff up. Like
Oh,
it just shouldn't have happened. They did manage to correct them, but this was after people had gotten their courses accepted and things like that. So it was a mess.
wow.
That's why I imagine this year there'd be a lot of demand for colleges.
And like, yeah, I could hear Tulsi going, What the hell? Shit like that happens all the time here." And people had like cancelled accommodation bookings and things in different cities in the country, and then they find out that they had the points to get where they wanted to go. It's
Oh my
absolute insanity.
God. Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. There's I'm gonna bring up another topic here. So like,
Yeah.
do you think schools, like the current education systems, like prepare us for the future, like well enough?
Nah. There's no way they
Tulsi,
can
do you
ever
wanna-
prepare anyone for the future. Like, that's my opinion
Do
on
you
it.
want, do you want to take the lead on this one, Tulsi? Because we kind of left you out there talking about the leaving cert.
I mean, so I do the IB, the International Baccalaureate. It's like typically international schools, but there are also like, I know some American schools, okay, private schools, I would say, in like the US or the UK do it, and then obviously international schools. But I like, the system is pretty cool in the sense that it's definitely more global and worldly compared to, let's just say, the British system. But yeah, I mean, maybe not to the extent where it prepares us for like life, and like it doesn't necessarily include maybe life skills, whether it's like home economics, or what Liam was saying earlier today, which I think personally is something that it should be taught to all students. But it definitely does. The approach, the academic approach, it promotes. It does. It's not just focused on academics. I think it forces you to get involved with different activities. For example, we have this thing called CAS, which is like you have to do a creativity, an action, and a service learning based activity, all three of them, and you just reflect for 2 years. But it forces you to get involved with different activities that are not just academically orientated. So I think that in the sense that it does force you to reflect on yourself as a learner, but also reflect on why you're learning and how in the future all these various activities are going to be beneficial. So I mean, yeah, like compared to when I was in the British system, I think it was focused on like getting the grades, and I don't know, there wasn't as much space for creativity.
Yeah, I think that's a far better system. I mean,
I think like in Ireland,
our
you have
system,
the
like,
complete
everything in
choice of
Ireland
like
is
what you want to do.
outdated as hell, like.
Like you could do no sciences if you
Yeah.
so wished.
I don't know if it's a good idea though.
Yeah.
That's just restricting
I mean, like, no, in
yourself
some ways, like,
at a really young age.
in some ways, like, it can be beneficial for like someone who like, say wants to do like they know what they want specifically when they're older, so like they really focus on that. Where like science would be useful. Like I suppose like it gives people that option. I suppose that'll be a benefit to. But then again, like having a more general skill base is very good too. Probably for like the broader population, it'll be more useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in contrast to that, what you were saying about how it's all very like pushing creativity and kind of practical based. Like our system is pretty much complete opposite of that. I mean, you do have your practical subjects like metalwork and woodwork where you're working with things, so you can't avoid the practical aspect. But I mean, there's LCA, which is Leaving Cert Applied, which is meant to be for people to be able to go and get apprenticeships and do more practical work. I think it's a really good idea. LCA
I wonder
brilliant,
if other countries do it.
There's a really big problem. There's a really big problem with it, and the stigma around it is unavoidable. Like teachers say, oh no, like do LCA if you want to do an apprenticeship. It's really important.
Yeah, the
But
man
the
just commented
stigma
there.
is that people
LCA
who
is
do
for
LCA
thugs.
are for thugs,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of stigma around it. And it's a shame. It's a brilliant concept for people who want to go and do like apprenticeships to be an electrician or a plumber or things like that. Like really important jobs that like very necessary to society functioning properly. And there's the massive stigma around it where everyone says like, "Oh,
Like-
Jesus, you're doing LCA.
Like there's like
what the hell are
people
you doing
make
with your
like
life?
like
Like, you're a waster."
abbreviation. Sorry. It's like there's people that like make up abbreviations for LCA, like Let's Go on Apples or like.
Yeah. And it's terrible. But how do you get around that stigma? I mean, the people who tend to do LCA
When their toilets break, man, they'll have no one, like, because it really is an important job. Like plumbers and electricians, like especially something like this in a pandemic. Like I wonder how many people's like fucking water has been an issue because of fucking Ireland's shit government. No offense, Ireland.
Oh no, shit on the government all you want.
Yeah.
Considering we've had the same government for 100 years, they're just different flavors. Different flavors of the same ice cream. Shit.
I can also imagine like home economics having a negative stigma as well.
Yeah, it's
But
kind of
I think it.
looking like, do you like when you like look? I suppose like look at like the fucking like sorry swearing there, but like when you look at the kind of like curriculum of it, it's literally like a stereotypical woman. Like that is the course, like, because like NTY, like you do it, and just like the teachers, like it's just kind of like that's how it makes like that class what it feels like is just kind of like make it like a patriarchal society class. Like all like you swear to God that's what it is. Like when I was in that TY, that's how I felt that class was.
I don't know, like you can things like nutrition should be taught at school. I mean, the UK and the US, obesity, diabetes.
I mean,
pretty
Ireland.
crazy.
I think Ireland's the worst in
Ireland
Europe.
is the second. Is it the second most obese in Europe?
I think
after
so.
Netherlands, or is
Even though like it's
or is it
still
the
not
most
that
obese?
bad. Like you look around, it's not that bad, but still
No.
like it is, like statistically.
Still a problem, like. Yeah, and yeah, you're just not really taught about that stuff at school. I mean, yeah, I think the general I mean, we all started like the general consensus before and after this discussion is that school systems in Ireland at least do not prepare you for life.
Yeah.
At all.
I don't know how many school systems actually do though. There's not enough emphasis on basic life skills.
I feel like
I have no clue about personal finance. I'm scared. Like.
Yeah, a funny thing is like you read about that on like
every meme ever.
On like I don't know on Instagram and things you hear about like in America they don't teach about taxes and that, but we actually do learn about taxes in maths and in maths like that you learn to do your taxes and things like that.
Yeah, it's
and mortgages and how
it's a
they
question that comes up every year.
Like I always thought, oh Jesus, yeah, we don't get taught anything about that, but actually when you think about it, we kind of do. If you oppose that with other places that don't learn anything about it at all.
Yeah.
LCAs for thugs.
Yeah, the comments.
Handmaid's Tale. Watch out, Ireland.
Yeah, Mikey. Yeah, in Mikey's opinion, Ireland is like a dystopian world because it doesn't have enough iron brew.
There's plenty of iron brew if you know where to look, Mikey. Wink.
They sell iron brew on Wink. What? What do you think about like more technology being like introduced into schools? Like there's like some certain schools in the countries, mainly private schools, that like have completely like replaced books with like tablets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's weird. I don't know. I think that's weird.
I agree with you, Lynn. It's kind of like I think it's really important, and it's the way things are going, and we kind of just have to accept it. And if it's implemented well, which it definitely won't be in Ireland, but that's besides the point. It's important in that sense, But I'm just kind of like, oh, that'd be really weird. I suppose I'm getting old. I'm just like, oh, fucking kids these days always on their tablets. You know what I mean?
Mm.
What do we-
I
Yeah,
want to
like
mention this though, because Matthew, one of our friends, like he went to Munich, and I remember he always said to me like when he was there, he had a lot of tablets. It reminds me of something else that I heard one time. It's like,
my primary
I
school
don't know
had
if
a
it was
lot
this
of
close.
tablets too.
You see, in Lunya, I don't think we really had any like
Oh,
we really
Oh, they
didn't,
do
like,
now. They do
Where I
now.
went to
They have
school,
like
we
a
had
big
nothing,
bank of tablets.
No, that's pretty good. But it does remind me of something I heard, and I don't know how accurate this is, but like, let's just say, anyways, it was like 50 years or 100 years that people won't even know how to write anymore. Like, it'll be more about like texting and things like that kind of typing mode, rather than writing. It's so strange to think that, like, oh my god, writing is actually like sort of a skill, like,
yeah.
in a certain sense.
Yeah, I'm fucking terrible at writing. Like my handwriting.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I agree to that.
Handwriting is just like not my strong suit at all. I think
But-
a massive thing is like when I was applying to like university there for UCAS, yeah. Oh, so sometimes you have to submit like essays and things. You
Yeah,
have
I
to
done a
submit
personal
work,
essay
and
too.
They wanted it. Yeah, so they want it typed up and like you email it to them and that. And it's just like we have never been taught how to use Microsoft Word and things like that properly. Like I know how to use it
Yeah.
because I'm like familiar with computers and stuff, but like you would not be taught that at school if you had no access to it
You see,
yourself
like, I feel like
at home. Like it's shocking.
like when you're done with school and you go into the workplace, whatever. Like, in all fairness, like everything you'll be doing is going to be done digitally. I feel like that's kind of the
Yeah, and
benefits of more
typing-
online school. I
think
feel like it shouldn't be completely
typing essays.
done like through computers, but I feel like you should do some.
Yeah,
Because obviously, like,
everyone
writing
should
is like,
learn how to write.
yeah.
I would go as far to say. Oh, sorry, Tulsi, go ahead.
No, like you say, everyone should be learn to write. Also, learn to type. You know.
Yeah, I think in primary school when you're learning your ABCs and then like basic maths and things like that, and learning how to write and things, that's fine. Do that with
Yeah,
stick that with pencil and paper. But
yeah.
as soon as you come to secondary school, pardon me, you need to be typing your work. It doesn't make sense to have to be writing out essays and things
Do you know what I'd like to
with
bring
your
up?
hand when you'll never actually have to do that in reality.
I had something I actually like
when
to
you
bring
grow
up
up,
about
like-
that, Frank, is like Joe, like how like in primary school, like I suppose like you're like not meant to use calculators and stuff like that. But like you go to secondary school, you only use the calculator. I feel like it's kind of like
Yeah, but I
you
think
see
that's-
our primary
think
school
that's
teacher
good.
was kind of like, yeah, I feel like that is good, definitely. But like our primary school teacher did a lot of like you know, like she'd be like, okay, do you know, I know it says you're not allowed to use a calculator on this, but you use it anyway because you need to practice this for next year. Like I think in sixth class
Yeah,
she done
but
that. I feel like that was a good thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I would be kind of slightly against that in the sense that, I mean, even the way the system works, where you're technically not allowed to use calculators in primary school, people can't do basic arithmetic in secondary school, and it's kind of shocking.
I think what she done was
Like-
more like give us like a tip and like toes in the water kind of approach to it.
Yeah,
Which
no,
was
and I
pretty good.
understand where she was coming from.
Like
and,
obviously, like
and
it was
it's a
only
good
for
idea.
like
I mean, get used to
certain
the
stuff she
calculator, but
do it like.
yeah, but I think that should maybe be left until you're in first year, like the first year of secondary school. I mean, learn how to use the calculator there, and then you have it, and you still have your ability to. I mean, they should really focus on kids' ability to do mental maths. It's so important.
Yeah. Wait, sorry. First year was like how old?
About 12, 13.
12, 13, yeah. I mean, by then you should know your times tables up to 12, I think. 12 times tables. That's where we stop, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I suppose, like kind of like after that's kind of like the squares that are important. Kind of know like surge stuff like that. It's kind of stuff that like is good to have in your head. Like it'll like
Yeah,
when you're doing
and,
like
I mean,
maths, that
you're
would really
building
speed
on
up
that
your
all the
ability.
time, but I think it's definitely like detrimental, I would almost say, to have kids relying on calculators and things like that. and not being able to do.
That's the thing. Though,
I
when you
don't
think
know,
of like a
it's kind of like a thing with me.
when you think of like the future, like everyone now has their phones on them, like, and always has a calculator if they need them, like for like doing like more complex stuff. Like obviously, like, you're still going to be able to count
Yeah.
money in your head, stuff like that. But I guess if you ever do need to do stuff like that, it's kind of like with phones now, especially, kind of the calculator approach kind of does make more sense these days than it would like 20 years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the case still stands. It's like you should be able to do basic arithmetic, which is up to 12 times tables, and you
Yeah.
should be able to add numbers. I mean, if you've got a crazy multiplication, then yeah, use a calculator. There's no point in trying to figure it out with archaic methods or whatever. But
Yeah.
you should be able to figure out what 12 times 6 is without a calculator. I don't know. Pet peeve of mine.
Frank, it's like me with the writing. Like I'm just like against like
Cool.
typing, man. I just feel like writing is like
Throwback to Thursday when
closer. Like
Sorry, throwback to Thursday when
Go ahead,
when I
Liam.
impaled your calculator with a soldering iron.
Yeah, that happened.
but basically, you're saying like it's good to like stay in touch with like just kind of like some of the older things. Like don't stray too far from history. You know.
Yeah, but Liam, I think definitely like it's people should know how to write, learn how to write. That's perfectly fine. But as soon as you get to secondary school, people need
Yeah, I
to
agree.
know how
I agree
to
with
type
you.
work, because that's what everything is in third level.
I agree with you.
Yeah, that was a big change for me when I moved schools, because everything was first done pretty basic, writing everything out, and then as soon as I got to my new school, I was somewhat expected to know how to use like a laptop, but I mean,
Yeah.
at least
I
it
just
was
got
in
my-
middle school, so it was good. Like now I'm saying pretty decent using Google Docs. Yeah.
I feel like that
Like myself, I just got my first computer this year. So for me, I'm just like I'm still trying to like learn how to use a computer. For me, really honestly, like that's what I'm at right now. Like, I just got it this year, so I'm still learning how to use this stuff, and it definitely would have been a nice skill to have picked up in school. You know,
Yeah.
even
Yeah,
if
I
it was
feel like-
just a little bit more than I know now.
Like the first ever, my UCAS essay, I feel like that was like the first proper bit of like writing I've done like through Microsoft Word. Like I've done little bits before, obviously, but like I feel like that was the first proper major thing that I've had to write. I was just kind of like, okay, I know paper, I know how many pages that is. On text, I don't know how many pages that is. I don't know like the scale of it.
Yeah.
That is like
And
one
like you
thing.
were saying there, Liam, like if you only got a computer this year and you never used one before, like definitely that just shows how important it is for us to learn that at school.
Right.
I mean, I think that's all.
To give you some perspective, I learned how to copy and paste this year.
Yeah.
Literally.
So see, like, I think that it's so important that you should learn that at school.
Important. Yeah, I should have had that in school. Like,
Yeah, and that's what the education system is kind of. Well, I think the big part is people who don't have access to that at home and things like that. That's what the education system should
But
be
the thing
providing
is-
for people.
Do you like now that we're
Almost as its
talking
most
about this?
important function.
Do you like most of the
No.
stuff we were like
I
covering there?
agree.
That's all stuff that we kind of done in like Joe, like we're talking about like how like politics needs to be taught, like more computer stuff needs. That was all taught in like first to third year. Like I suppose that's when that kind of stuff's more focused on, like social physical health education, politics. That's kind of when all that stuff's taught, not in the leaving cert, which is kind of like it's
and-
kind of like back arsed like.
Well, I understand why they do it. I think it's good that we have, like you were saying there, social physical SPH, and then CSPE is the politics, civil, social, and political
Yeah,
science or
like
whatever.
I feel like that should be
CSPS.
done like when you're
Isn't it?
older, because that's when you'd actually care. Like CSP,
Yeah,
for example,
well-
like I doubt many back
at
then
the
like
same time, I
really
see what
gave
Frank's saying.
like
A
cared much.
massive problem, I think, with things like politics and that. And I don't know if this applies to anywhere else in the world, but in Ireland, there's a massive stigma against it. People never want to talk about politics and that because people generally don't have any trust in politicians. And this is me going off now, but that's what the politicians want. Because if you have in your education system people thinking about politics and learning critical thought and then they're like, wait, hang on a minute, what the hell are we letting these people run us for? They don't
Exactly.
want it. They
Yeah.
don't want that in the education system, and it's painfully apparent in Ireland. Like, the CSPE is shocking. Like, you don't actually learn anything of any importance at all in Ireland, and
Like-
people should be taught critical thought.
It's
and
more
how
like
to,
a light touch to it, really. Like, you should be more in depth. Like, you should be like learning about like each like individual
Yeah,
political party, for
and-
example. Like,
Yeah. See, I've always had an interest in politics, but I mean, I'm going to study politics for third level. I'm going to do government and political science, and I'm the only person in our year who's going to do that. And there's 70 people in our year. No one else even has an interest. And I mean, that's not me being like, oh, I have an interest in this, other people don't. I find it shocking that people don't have any interest at all in politics when it's so important to everything that happens in any state. I mean, we're not taught anything about it, and that's so that people who are in power can stay in power. But it's just like, why is this the way that our system works, and why doesn't anybody care?
yeah.
Like, Frank, I can't agree with you anymore there if I tried, like, because for me, like, I was never interested in politics until literally just this year, and that's when I became like a bit of a politics. But even when I was in CSP, like, I swear, like, I wasn't in that class because like I didn't really attend much this year. My attendance like dropped, so I'm going to be teaching this year. But for me, when I was doing CSP, like I really didn't attend that many classes, and it was literally like I used to think it was the most boring class in the entire school.
Yeah,
But
because
now,
that's
like,
the way it's taught. It's
yeah.
shocking. There's no, and like politics and society is a brand new course on the Leaving Cert that was became a course 2 years ago, I think, which is, I mean, just think about that for a second. It's shocking that politics wasn't a Leaving Cert choice 2 years ago, and no one knows about it. No one even knows. Like, I bet I could do a poll in our school and nobody knows that that's a possibility of a course that you can do.
I learned about that earlier when Mikey like read out all the subjects that are in the Leaving Cert. That's when I first found out about it.
Yeah. I brought it up with the teacher in our school when we were in TY to see if I could get a class together. And she was kind of supportive of it because she'd be interested in politics herself. But she said you would need to have 9 students, and you just won't get that. So I wouldn't.
My
be
God,
getting
Frank,
my
I
hopes
never
up or
even
anything.
heard about that, man. That's so sad, man.
So it's
I really
kinda
wish I
like-
was just into politics at the time. Like, even another example, like I never even bought the CSP book itself. I never even bothered buying it, like, because I was like, this would be useless. Like,
Yeah,
that's
there
how like
wasn't a CSP
belittle
book.
I felt towards politics. Huh?
There wasn't a CSP book.
No, there was.
Oh, there
There was like
was,
in
yeah.
class.
We did have one.
Yeah, there was.
Giovanni.
Oh, did we? Jeez.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
This is the point, like, you know.
Go ahead.
I never
there,
bought
Tulsi.
it. You don't even know it existed. Like,
what is your like like your politics? The course itself, is it sort of based on Irish politics or
No. So the way what we learned in our politics course, so it's compulsory subject, civic, social, and political education, CSP from first to third year, in secondary school, and basically, you learn the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which doesn't actually apply to anything in reality, unfortunately. I mean, it'd be good if it did. And you learn the the Charter on the Rights of the Child, right? That's what you learn. 2 things, and I mean that's the only things I remember from.
okay.
And you learn about then, what was the other thing? You learn about travelers in Ireland, because they're quite a large like demographic of people who live here, and that is literally it. There's no. You don't learn anything about parties
There's also
or
stuff about
policies
charities
or
too,
how politics
which
actually
is not
works.
very political.
and it's like Northern Ireland as well is such a boo for some people too. Like, as well,
There's
like,
nothing
kinda
about
get
the
into it, like-
North, which is, as a case study, I mean, is one of the most important political events of the 20th century.
Yeah.
And we live what 50 miles from the border, and we don't learn a fucking thing about it.
Wow.
It's always just something you like hear from like people, and it's like, even though like you might love the people around you, like everyone has the exact same like belief on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
Is
But
it
there's
a
definitely
big
taboo around
contrast
it,
for
like-
you, Tulsi? Like, do you use?
Well, I don't take the global politics course that the IB offers, but like I think a lot of it, like a topic I know big section is international relationships. It is definitely global politics. It's not doesn't focus on any one country, but
Yeah.
so I'm not entirely sure what the course is, but it seems very interesting from how like students are pretty passionate about the course itself, which is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think people who tend to be interested in politics tend to be very passionate people generally anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just to roast everyone, like you're not into politics, you're just boring.
I mean,
it's like we flipped it, like
I have a serious problem there where like you'll be talking to people, and something that generally happens here in Ireland is people have exactly the same political views as their parents,
Yeah.
and that gets passed on. And when you talk to somebody and they say things kind of offhand, that I nothing's coming to me.
What do you mean by
I'm
offhand, though?
thinking about it, but so people will make a comment and they'll be like, "Oh, this party is rubbish, actually, aren't they?" And say that's the party you support, and you go, "Well, actually, if you've read the manifestos, this is what they push for, and the party that you support." And then they're like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about politics. I have no interest." And it's like you go around spouting this nonsense that isn't reality.
Yeah, it's
And
just
when
like what their
someone tries
parents
to
have told
educate
them.
you on it, you have no interest. That's
It's like a self-defense
real-
mechanism almost.
Yeah,
think.
and they say it because politics isn't something that's important in Irish society. Like, people don't care. Very, like, well, that's a massive generalization, but I hate to say that in my experience.
I mean, like,
it's a fact.
I mean,
People
like,
don't care.
I mean, like, I'm not very political, but like, I suppose I do have my own like beliefs, you could say. But I feel like I kind of agree with you on that. It's like generally, especially around here, it's like not very like an important. Well, it says important, but like like it's not viewed as important. Like, I suppose like most people around here is kind of just like you do your day's work, you get paid, kind of thing. It's kind of how like I suppose people view it, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just nobody has an interest in it. Like,
it's just kind of like they have like the belief that like things will go well.
Yeah.
See, that
I'm
was a
curious,
big
how did
problem.
you,
No, sorry.
What was
There's
that, Liam?
I was just going to ask, how did you have such an interest in politics from a young age, Frank? Because I just like came into it myself. Just I don't even know how I did. I just kind of like randomly came out of the blue. But I'm curious for you.
My household, I mean, there's a lot of us. I mean, I've got 5 brothers. 3 of them are older than me. And when you go to college, you get exposed. Like, politics is a massive thing at college because people aren't exposed to it in secondary school. So when you go to college and you actually learn critical thought on how to interpret things, people get very interested in politics because it is going to affect their lives. And because I had that in my household growing up, I kind of absorbed it. And because I'm naturally have an affinity towards that kind of thing, like argument, and that I have always had a big interest in political issues and things.
I think you've solved it there because, like, I don't know, I may be generalizing here, and I know this definitely doesn't apply to you. Have older siblings, and I have older siblings, and Giovanni does too. But Tulsi, you're the oldest in your family, and it seems like, I don't know, like it's strange. Like, we basically became friends kind of through politics as I met you, but at the start, it didn't really like seem like you were super into politics or anything, you know?
Yeah. It's never been like, I don't necessarily discuss it with friends, I would say. Never had like the exposure to discuss it with people as much now.
So I think it's just like a siblings thing. Like, once your siblings come on, you can like see a change in them. Like, at least I used to notice this. Like one of my be like, or 2 of my sisters would be vegans or whatever. Like, so when they came back from college, they did the world differently, and they would like can't talk to me about it, and I would like debate, you know, how it sparked for me. I
I
think.
just want to Matthew commented there quite accurately. He's saying Frank is buzzing that he gets to talk about politics, which is true. You won't deny it. You can definitely tell a change in my
I had such a
passion
good
when we
point
start
there.
talking about things like this.
I had such a good point, but I forgot. I was basically what we're talking about was like Like I was basing on about like how I hope that like everything works out. Like people assume that and that, like they, they do their day's work. And like I had a really good point. And I forgot about it. I hate it.
Good man,
Because I know
Jay.
Liam started talking then, and it just went out of my mind.
I can
Sorry.
monologue about politics for a bit if you want to think about it.
Here,
No, it's fine.
While you're on it, Gio, I do have another question for you, Frank. So, in my opinion, I think the
Getting
thing
all
with
the
college, though,
questions.
is even in college seems to be a bias to certain political views. In my opinion, like from what I've observed from colleges,
Yeah.
not that I'm in college,
So-
but I think there's a certain bias in college itself for politics.
Something I'll say to you, Liam, is like whatever views you have politically. I mean, we're familiar with each other, so we know.
Mhm.
The affinity towards like left-wing political views, universe.
Mhm.
I think anyway. I mean, left-wing, so I'm gonna have this opinion anyway. When people can are taught how to think about things and critically think about knowledge,
Mhm.
people tend to arrive at similar conclusions.
Mhm.
So people, like, I mean, morally, when you think about it very basically, a left-wing point of view is more attractive.
Of course,
Because the idea
it absolutely
is that everybody gets on better. Like, I mean, you get things like universal healthcare and that.
Yeah, it's the party of diversity. But I
Yeah.
feels like there's a problem that, like, I'm not really complaining, but I just feel like there is a bias there. And I'm just pointing it
Yeah.
out because it seems like a bit strange that, like, it is a party for diversity when it comes to, like, the main place where you might find, like, left-leaning thought would be a college, more than anywhere else in a workplace or anything would be a college. But in that place, it's so, like,
do you see
undiverse.
the point I'm
and
making there? I mean, I don't say that right-wing people are uneducated. It's just true. It's not a fact. But when people tend to go and get these educations, they tend to lean left
Mhm.
because people, when you have such a, when people are studying and they're learning about different case studies that have happened in the past, like the emancipation of women, or you look at civil rights movement in America and things like that, and people go, well, these people had left-wing ideologies.
Yeah.
These are the things that we look on as the positives in history. So the conclusion you reach is, well, these people were left. I would like my heroes would like to follow an example and lean left and try and make
And
the
I
world
completely
better for
understand.
everybody.
And I completely understand. Like, I would be very left-leaning at a certain point in my life until, like, before I got into politics, like, I could recognize now, looking back, that I was definitely left-leaning. But I feel like you're pointing out, like, the thing itself, but I'm trying to, like, get to, like, how this becomes. And I think it's because of the fact that, like, even in, like, primary schools, there's still kind of a bias there too. So when you go to bias schools, you pick a little, or when you go to
Yeah, like
middle school, like,
you get taught in primary school that sharing is good. That's communism.
no, not necessarily. Like, but that's the thing. Like, I'm just saying, there's like a bias there too. Like, because it's not like Republicans are against sharing necessarily.
I think that's more
But
like,
anyways, we're off
saying
topic.
that in
We'll
like
save our time
primary
for another
schools.
day.
I think that's because, like, in my opinion, I think primary schools still have a very, like, they're very run by the Catholic Church still. Like, what year in primary school, like, every week there's the mass.
I mean, that wasn't a thing in our
No, I feel like in my
primary
school it was definitely, looking back, it was definitely like kind of like very Catholic.
In most schools in Ireland,
Yeah, same as you.
in most primary schools in Ireland, there's the local parish priest is the chairman of the board on the local primary school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only learned that recently too, which is so strange. Like, how did I not know that? Like, the priests are like.
But I think it is changing now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of schools like in Dublin and that don't have that, and I mean, you see it even from when I was young, like when I was going to mass as a child. The numbers of people going to mass has dropped drastically. The church in Ireland has nowhere near as much power as it had even 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and if you go back 40 years, the amount of power that the church in Ireland is insane. So it's definitely on the decrease, which I think is the reality around the world as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Seamus
It's
saying
so
it was the same for
uncomfortable
you.
now, like.
Inputs there on.
Like when you look
Sorry?
back at it, it really was.
Do yeah,
Like, let
do
me
you have
ask
any
you
inputs there on
this.
like the church or whatever, or like religion having a role in school? I feel like you're being kind of left out here.
I mean,
Yeah, sorry,
again,
sorry.
international school definitely not religious, or at least the one that I go to. British, the British school that I was like, again, I mean, we'd have things like hymn practice,
Oh
and
my
we'd have
really?
like carol services, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't crazy religious, nah.
Sure, guys, even when you think about it, even like every Irish primary school is named after a saint.
Yeah.
Like, just even when you think about that, like, they did have massive power in primary schools. I think even like in my childhood, like, definitely. Even though, like, you kind of think of something that's something like Ireland straight away from, but like it's still present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
I
it's
mean,
definitely like deteriorating that power or whatever that the church has over education in Ireland.
I
Yeah.
mean, so like international school, because it is focusing on all these different cultures. We somewhat celebrate, I would say, different religions, which is pretty cool. So yeah, there's emphasis on.
Like, can I ask you, like, so for us and things, like, I remember like there would be things in school, like, I think it was like Ash Wednesday when you get like a thing in Irish called the Baldú, I think, and it's just like a little black cross you put on your head, and it's a religious thing. Like, so how does it work? Like, so do you just have like loads and loads of like events in your school for these kind of things?
Not necessarily. I mean, for example, we'll have like some days off if it is a religious holiday, whether it's like the Kenyan government has said, okay, we're gonna dedicate this day to whoever, but it's just like a recognition of these rare, like for example, Diwali. They may give a mention on like an Instagram story, like the school's Instagram page, or like in the high school email bulletin. And then even at school, there might be like a little background information about that specific holiday. But it's just everyone is like somewhat exposed to different, like these different cultural, events.
Yeah, sure. That's something I'd like just mention to you. Is like even like you always mention like our school sending emails. Like we don't have that. Like we do not use email at all. Then you're like, oh, I was emailing my friends. I was like, what?
And like you were saying, Giovanni, I think the only teacher that I've ever emailed is our physics teacher, who is the only teacher who actually knows how to work a computer.
Literally,
there are other teachers.
Yeah, the TD one as well.
Yeah, it's so backwards.
I know.
I feel like after like this podcast tonight, I've kind of felt like, oh my god, it's actually much worse than I thought it was. Like from when I initially went on this episode.
I mean, we have been shitting on all the problems in the
Irish but there's still a lot of good things like
all night.
Like here's something I'd like to bring up actually. I was looking at like the best education systems in the world, and like the top was like Japan, and then like down in 5th was Ireland. But the only reason Ireland was in 5th is because during the financial crisis and between 2008 and 2013 they cut 15% of the funding of education, which doesn't really affect right now, but like let's say in like 20 years time that'll be really affected, because like when schools need to be like, because buildings only have a certain lifespan, and whenever they need to eventually be rebuilt, like there's like no funding for that. It's kind of like the similar issue with Joe in Italy. Like the past few years you've been hearing news, bridge collapses in Italy, so many people die. That's because like after like the Second World War, when Italy was like getting back up on its knees, they really worked on infrastructure, which worked out well for them. But all these bridges they built had like a 50 to 70 year lifespan, and all those lifespans are ending now. So like obviously these bridges now, like they're out of their lifespan, so they're collapsing. That's kind of how like I suppose like looking at a future of the Irish system, like that's what's going to happen.
Plus our
fall down. Oh, my mic.
Well, not like that, but like it's kind of like the same like principles. Like like in the future it might be really badly
Yeah.
affected. So like in like 70 years time, like maybe by like like when a generation goes
Fingers
by,
crossed
like
the
maybe
Socialist Party
it might
gets
be
into
a lot
sort the
worse.
education system out, alien.
No, sir. Don't even start. Like, you leave your social biases out of the fucking podcast. Like,
This is why
But
I'm
yeah,
on
the
the
basically
podcast, lad.
the ranking was saying that like if that wasn't the case, like Ireland would be at the top. That's the only reason why it was
Yeah.
nudged down. Because
I
like, when
mean,
you look at it, like of a grade
Ireland's-
score,
our education
Ireland's actually
system-
really good.
I just find it. I don't know. Like, there's definitely massive problems which we've outlined like a lot in this video, this live stream, like. But I mean, you do get a certain level of knowledge, and I mean, Irish students in that are quite successful worldwide, where they go to do postgrads, or they're quite high employment levels. I mean, our third level education at least must be very effective.
You see, Ireland has massive
Um,
third level education like subsidies, so like it's much cheaper here to go to college than, let's say, the UK.
yeah.
Like it like actually, it's like, for example, my course, it's like something maybe like $4,000 a year, but like basically someone was like they were telling me that like if I lived in the UK and I was to do that exact same course, it would be like 60,000 a year, and it being a 4 to 6 year course,
really?
that would be like insane amounts of
I
money.
mean, generally in the UK, it's $9,000 a year is your fees if you're an Irish or a UK student, because of the way that the way the system works with Ireland is
Yeah,
because of the north and that,
yeah.
it kind of counts as
The UK are
the
quite
same thing.
favourable to international
Yeah.
students.
I think is it $21,000 a year for international students generally. I never heard of $60,000 there, but maybe it was a specific course.
I know, like in like actual UK, like if you're studying, I think it's like there is a fee for international students you have to pay, and it's like I think £15,000, probably 21,000 euro. Which that's per year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that would add up a lot. Especially like my case, like it's a 6-year course, like that would like over the course of 6 years. Like, you know, that's
that would definitely be.
you could have built a house. A really nice house.
Yeah.
It's the Celtic Tiger all over again, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the reason why Ireland wasn't at the top, was because
Hey,
it
Dulcie,
doesn't look
do you
right.
know what the Celtic Tiger is?
No.
See, I was thinking this, like, although like a lot of our viewers probably would be like Irish, there's probably some like
50%.
people watching Globe. Yeah, so like you just need to like sometimes like explain these terms like Celtic Tiger and things, like because these are very Irish things, and who the fuck knows anything about Ireland?
Well,
Honestly.
basically, the Celtic Tiger is when like Ireland's economy was booming. There was like tons of like
Okay.
people moving to Ireland. You know, like the economy was booming. So basically, the banks were so confident in the future, they were handing out loans for like people to build houses. Like there was like no requirements. You could just go out, get a really low interest loan, buy a 500 grand house, pay it 30 years. But because they handed out so many people, eventually there was no money left. So then Ireland had to bail out all the banks, and it's basically like the next
They
X
didn't
amount of
have
years.
to. They chose to.
Yeah, for the next X amount of years, we'll be paying that money back in tax.
I mean, Tulsi, if you just want like to see the incompetence of the Irish government again, I feel like we've been talking about it a lot.
Yeah.
Like, what happened there was the banks were going to go bust, but they were too big to fail, which is the thing that's worldwide thing. So the government was like, we're going to guarantee the shareholders of the banks, so they get every penny back that they would lose from these banks going bust. Or this is simplified, but basically this is what it is. And so the Irish people are still paying in their taxes, paying back these shareholders of the banks, who are all millionaires and billionaires and things like that, and we have to pay for them, even though it's not affecting them financially at all.
Yeah, pretty
Well,
much.
this
To
was-
love.
This was
Irish
like the
government.
late 90s, right?
Nope,
Early 2000s.
2008.
Okay,
2000. I think it was September 2008 or 2007.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my
like the Celtic
goodness.
Tiger was like the good part. It's like that was like early 2000s. Like
Ireland's. I mean, this is just
late
me going
2000s.
mental now, but Ireland's debt per capita is the third highest in the world because of
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
it was down, and we were like 80th or something stupid.
But that's the thing,
No.
though. The thing is, as well, with Ireland, is like excluding outliers such as like Monaco, for example, Ireland has the second highest GDP per capita. It's just
Yeah,
like such
it does.
it's very unbalanced. Like,
But
even-
Ireland's GDP is fake as well.
Yeah,
like,
because it's
leprechaun
through,
economics.
it's because basically like
So,
Ireland
I'm
like
familiar
hosts a
with
lot of
that.
like offshore accounts for like other countries. That's why it's boosted so much.
Yeah, and
Cool.
it's a completely pointless figure, and all it does is make people think the Irish economy is doing well when it isn't.
Interesting.
Anyway,
Yeah. Do you know what?
Yes, we all love the Irish government here in Ireland, don't we, boys.
Do you know what, guys? I
Yeah.
think this is a good point to end it. I think we've had a really good one this week.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Enjoyed it.
well, do you want to say your goodbyes? Then I'll do the outro. And
Lack of fact.
crickets.
For those
Crickets.
people wondering what the fuck the Celtic Tiger was, you're welcome.
okay, right. Well,
Right.
that's your goodbyes
Go
then.
to An Cloch Ban and
Yeah,
get
I'll do that. If I'm gonna
nice
meet you now.
photos.
Anyway, guys, thanks to everyone for showing up today. I think this was a really good one, possibly one of our best live streams. And a big thank you to An Cloch Ban for sponsoring this video. Please check out his Instagram; it would mean a lot to us, and obviously to him as well. Again, the drone footage there, it looks amazing. I'm really happy we had that as our background footage. Again, like if you want to go to his Instagram, he's selling portraits. All you have to do is DM him, and he'll give you the figures. But yeah, again, we also have our links in the description for our social media stuff. If you want to check them out, check out when we're live. And also be starting up posting weekly highlights. So it'll be very interesting stuff. And thank you again to everyone. We'll be doing next week's topic is undecided yet, but obviously we'll be